it's funny because get this: the more people that I meet, and the more of these, the more I see the more I get to see there's certain places and actually get to expand my bubble. The more I see how I look back at some worlds I used to be a part of, and I realize that I've come across people who are so stuck in wanting people to be just like them. In other words, it's like I love diversity. I'm all for diversity of thought, feeling, expression, opinion, motive, talent, and preference too. Diversity of preference. Yeah. I've come across people where politics, whatever, name it, culture, whatever. We can have the same interests and talk about the same things day in and day out, but then when it comes to, despite all of our similarities, that is like the line that divides us.
Hi, it's James with Cowboy 43 Productions here, and I'm here with my friend Jason, who is a social worker, and we are doing a video on my thoughts on racism. You know, they have some reasons why they do what they do, but it's like, you know, they're not the right reasons. You know, to answer something in history with something else, you know, it's not fair. You know, white nationalism is bad. Black nationalism is bad too. Just answering an eye for an eye.
Right, yeah, because there tends to be not only a double standard, but also that card of acceptance or a card of exception when it comes to black nationalism. So as white nationalism, people are literally going to like go on a frenzy and go like, wait, what? White nationalism? Are you freaking serious? But then you say black nationalism, how do you think white people feel about that too?
You know, nobody likes any kind of nationalism.
Right, Latino nationalism, Asian nationalism. Like flip the script on every other different racial group, and you're going to get backlash. You're going to get inequity. You're going to get an influx of critique because you are basically saying that your racial group is the only group that's worthy of being nationalistic.
You know, and you're saying that the Bible is meant for someone or something. You know, it's meant for all of us. It was just first projected to the Jewish people because they were an oppressed group. You know, they were an oppressed group and God wanted to bring them out of that. You know, and one way or another it happened.
Yeah.
You know, that conflict, you know, just that history. And in America, you know, we pretty much shot ourselves in the foot because we had racism and slavery for so many years. You know, and the racism has continued. And I think I've had people tell me that racism has gotten better, but, you know, it's gotten better than it was, but it still happens.
No, it's still happening. And honestly, I don't really know if I agree with that, that it's gotten better. Because my first question is, what's gotten better? That's my first question.
You know, it just depends. I remember hearing that in my town, you know, I live in a town where the taxes are a little bit high. You know, I'm lucky that with our house we don't have high taxes right now. But some of my neighbors down the street have really high taxes. You know, we've just barely avoided that situation. So in Rochester, New York, you know, where we live, you have the inner city, which is majority, you know, black. And then you've got the suburbs, which is majority white. You know, there was the white flight from the suburbs. Most of the white people were living in the inner city and they moved out to the suburbs for some reason. You know, they were just afraid, you know, just had different, you know, attitudes towards things.
Yeah, there could have been a diverse amount of reasons.
It was just, I'd have to look at that and research each one just to give an answer.
I look at that too.
But I know one of my neighbors, you know, I have like 2 or 3 neighbors who are black. You know, they're just one there, one over there, one over there, you know, and I've got Muslim neighbors and I've got just different neighbors now. But I've had several people tell me that between the inner city and the suburbs, for a long time there, if you were black, if you tried to buy a house in the suburbs, you had to have cash. You know, if you bought a house in the suburbs back, you know, years and years ago, first of all, no realtor would show a house to you if you were black. That's one thing I found out about. And the second thing is the bank would not give you a mortgage on your house. And so black families were struggling with this just because, you know, they just couldn't get out of the city easily. It wasn't easy at all. You know, some suburbs are more welcoming than others.
Oh, yeah.
But this has changed a little bit because now you've got black families in Brighton. Nobody stopped them from getting a mortgage. No one stopped them from getting shown a house and buying the house. They just had to probably compete with everyone else, but that's about it. Colleges are very diverse right now. I
Very,
went to
very
MCC, I
diverse.
went to Brockport, I've seen a lot of your colleges have more black people, black men, black women in the college than ever before. Back at one point I was told that colleges were segregated, schools were segregated, colleges were segregated. So you had years and years of segregation, where it's like if you were black, you couldn't drink from a white drinking fountain. You couldn't go to a white bathroom. We luckily don't have mixed bathrooms right now. We don't have any of this nonsense. I can't imagine what it would be like living in a city like that, where you go into the bathroom and it's like, oh, your skin color's wrong. You can't use the same area as somebody who's, white. That's very ignorant. That's
very ignorant.
That's ridiculous for me to think about that.
It really is, because like to just ponder, and I was thinking about that actually earlier too, when you were saying this as well. It literally is hard. It's mind-boggling to actually fathom that. To think that our nation there was a point in our nation's history where it was the law where black people and white people could not be in the same anything. There had to be a separation between when it came to education, when it came to outings, when it came to amusement parks, when it came to entertainment. There had to always be a distinction. There always had to be a separation, and that's how life was. And at some point, and I'm guaranteeing at some point, people are not just black people, white people probably at some point, there had to have been some white souls in those days, families, members, anything, who stood out and thought to themselves, this is ridiculous. This law is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. Like, why can't we all just get along? I guarantee that there are many people that had that thought, but they probably didn't say anything because they didn't want to be ostracized.
Yeah.
I also think about what the Ashkenazi Jews went through in Europe during the Holocaust. I guarantee you right now that not every German citizen in Nazi Germany was for what Hitler was doing. I guarantee it, which is why I actually give respect to Germany for still actually being honest with their history, because they acknowledge what they did.
I was reading that Germany, they take all the politicians and they go to the concentration camp and they say, this is what we did as a country. We need to forget all of this as a country. We did this to our own people. We did this to citizens. We took them and we classified them and we rounded them up and we tried to get rid of them. And it's like, you don't need to ever do this again. And they're very blunt with their little field trips that they do as a nation. And I'm just like, wow, I would never make that decision. But I'm guessing there's people who were in Germany and they were just following the pack.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They didn't want this to happen, but they were just afraid to take a stand.
Survival, yeah. There was a method of survival, and also, if you don't see anybody else taking a stand against it, what makes you think that you'd be the first one to do that, or the only one to do it? Because no one else is doing it. Why would I do it?
Some person gets up and they say, I think this is wrong. I'm going to take a stand. And they're sitting there and they're dead. And next thing you know, no one else wants to take a stand for something because the first person got killed.
It's fear.
It's fear.
And that has happened, and I'm pretty sure, think about every great revolt against a regime or against a form of government or against a form of society or culture that has been mandated. Every revolt in history, that even revolts that I haven't even heard of, I likely you and I have not likely learned about yet. I would think about how much courage it took for one person or one group of people to stand up and say, we are not going to stand for this. We are pushing back against this, and we're going to abolish this. If we have to fight and if we die, I do not care. We're going to stand against this. And the revolt ended up being successful. If anything, the people may still have survived. But for that much, imagine how much courage that it has to take, that one has to muster up to actually have the audacity to stand against the face of an oppressive or of a propaganda-infused regime, and state that they no longer want to be a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of that's got to take a lot of courage, and a lot of heroes who stood up, who took the actual time to do that, that are still not being recognized.
You know, I remember I was at a sermon. I was at a like an event one time out in Niagara Falls, and one of the pastors got up, and he was black, of course, but he ended up giving a sermon, and he started off and he said something racist to the audience, and there was blacks, there was Asians from Toronto, and then there was white people in the audience too, just kind of mingled together, and a lot of them sat together and whatnot, but you know, based on their groups. But he made this racist joke, and all the black people and the white and all the blacks and the Hispanics maybe and the Asians, you know, they laughed, and all the white people sat there silent, like. You know, like, I don't know what to say, you know, and.
But also, what did the pastor say exactly?
I don't remember. I don't think I remember any of that.
Okay. Was it racist towards white people?
I think it was just racist in general or something, but it wasn't like a targeted thing. It was just like a racist comment.
Right.
But he said all the blacks and the Asians in the audience, they laughed when I said this, but all the whites, they stood real quiet, and he said, "Y'all never had a black preacher before. We all a little racist," you know. So it was like I remember that was kind of funny, you know, because he was funny about it. You know, I don't remember what originally he said, but you know, it's kind of the idea that racism can be universal.
Oh yeah, yeah. Wow.
You know,
wow, yeah.
I worked at Walmart for 4 years, and you know, I had all sorts of coworkers, right? Black, white, you know, whatever, everybody, and it was pretty good. You know, but it was like there was a lot of tension. There was a lot of racial tension that I saw from day to day. You know, I'd watch like self-checkout or something, and I'd catch customers shoplifting. I'd catch all sorts of customers shoplifting. You know, that was a big thing. I'd catch white customers, you know, old, young, black. You know, I think sometimes, you know, not being politically correct or anything, but I think sometimes some of my customers, I could tell they were probably from the hood. You know, and that may have been a stereotype, but I could tell, you know, some of them were more trashy than others, just with their attitudes. Some of them were more upstanding citizens, but there was lots of conflict. People would get in fights with each other. You know, and once in a while I'd have people pull the race card on me. You know, they'd say, "Oh, you're just discriminating against me because I'm black." You know, I was just a worker. You know, I wasn't involved with all this. I just was a worker, and I'd see somebody not scanning their items, or, you know, something would happen. And so that was something where some of the stuff that I went through at Walmart made me very prejudiced. You know, I'd start to prejudge people. You know, I'd start to see people and I'd go, "Oh boy, you know, I'm not going to look at that." And then all of a sudden I'd realize, "Oh, they're doing this." And, you know, so that was an environment where I just became very bitter and prejudiced, and I'd catch all sorts of problems going on from day to day. You know, and I'd see people doing stuff that I didn't necessarily like. You know, and it was just the toughest job for me, you know, to be in that situation. I had one of my coworkers say, you know, one of my coworkers is black. He said, you know, at times, at least in, you know, within his circles, he felt that black people were just as racist as white people. You know, he felt that it was like they're both firing, you know, shots at each other, and things are just happening. And there's a lot of reasons for that, but, you know, black people and white people are both racist towards each other. And a lot of that is ignorance. A lot of that is probably lack of diversity. You know, you grow up in your family and you think, "Oh, you know, this group that lives in this town or whatever, or this, you know, this race, you know, they're all bad." You know, you're told that at a young age. Racism is not natural to people. You know, when I was a little kid, I knew nothing of racism. You know,
It's taught.
I had cousins who were half black, half white. You know, I had relatives who were mixed and that. So I never knew any of that as a kid. It was just, you know, you get into the bigger world and you start to see stuff happening.
Exactly.
You know, and I think diversity helps. You know, if you live in a town where there's no diversity at all, you're probably going to likely to be racist.
Right, yeah, because that's all you know. And you don't know about how diverse the world or the community actually is. So if you're not exposed or around diverse people, your worldview will be very, very, very small and very skewed.
Small, yeah.
Very skewed, very ignorant as well. So yeah, it all goes back to what you're around. Well, like, you know, what are you surrounded by? Where are you surrounded by? What are you surrounded by most of the time? And what do you normally see? And how do you make judgments of that? So if that's all you're seeing, so of course it's going to condition you to believe that okay, this is really all there is. And if you see people that are different from you at some point going outside your community, that's when those prejudices that's when they start to come into effect. So yeah, you're right. But it all goes back to what you're around first. If you're not around different people long enough, it's typically easier to create those preconceived notions of them because you don't know who they are. All you know is what you've seen, and also what you've been taught. If you've been taught to look at them differently. So, because I know I've had experiences with people who I know, who I knew back in the day, and I know for a fact. Looking back, I realized this. I realized that they actually became pretty racist people, prejudiced people. Making all these assumptions about people of color or people that come from even people of color, people come from different backgrounds, even or women in general. And I realized, what kind of background did they come from? What were they mostly around? In their home environment, did they ever see more than just their community? Did they actually talk to someone who came from a different background, not just in faith, but in culture as well? Did they talk to anyone from that kind of background, or do they just go and judge everybody? And that's what I've seen that before. I've seen it. So yeah, you're right.
I get customers and I try to talk to them about something and they get loud and they'd say, "You're racist," That was hurtful to me because I'm just handling a different issue. I'm just handling everyone has their cards that they play. And sometimes people fall back on their cards. It's like one of my coworkers was saying how, he was gay, he had a gay card. He'd pull that out on people sometimes. Some people pull out a race card, it's like it's a substitute for a conversation or for explaining yourself or your own agenda.
Basically, it can also be likened to it can also be called an ad hominem attack.
Yeah, ad hominem attack.
Yeah, an ad hominem attack because you literally have nothing productive to add. So instead of actually wanting to engage in a productive conversation that can help the both of you grow, you instead only just want to you basically just want to pull out a card out of spite. You just want to spite the other person.
Yeah.
So by spiting them, you will pull out a card to attack them. You're attacking them out of context because your reasons for attacking them have nothing to do with with the conversation that you're having with them. Nothing to do with what you're talking about. Nothing to do with the topic at hand. You just want to spite them. That's all. That's all you want to do. You just want to attack them because there's something internally going on with you that you can't resonate with. So to try and justify how you're feeling, you just want to basically make them feel uncomfortable by throwing out the race card or throwing out the gay card and any manner like that. You're not having a discussion. You just want to attack the person now for whatever your motive is.
And some people would come through my store with chips on their shoulders. They were looking to get their agenda across, and so that was another big thing that would happen within the job scope. People have agendas, people mistreat each other. I'd have customers who were, white, and they were nasty to me. They'd get something where they'd think they were better than me because I'm a store employee, and they would just get real nasty. I'd have customers who were white, and they would see a customer in line who was black, and they'd say, well, I'm not paying for that person's order, or am I? They'd blame the person for their own poverty. Or they'd say, that person's black, so they're probably on welfare. They probably paid for their order with food stamps. Just making a general assumption they just throw out there.
Oh my goodness.
Or I'd have women who were...
I got a big problem with that.
I'd have women. Women are one of the most persecuted minority. They're a persecuted majority in most countries.
Especially black women.
Women, especially black women, women are withheld rights a lot of times, and different things that happen. Women just, it's tough. It's a tough road for women.
But I greatly admire their strength because people don't realize how much they actually push through.
Yeah.
How much they have to fight for what they have. And as a matter of fact, without women, men would be screwed. First of all, without women, we wouldn't have a lot of the breakthroughs, the invention and breakthroughs that we have in America today. That law enforcement uses, that businesses use, consulting firms use. Women have literally changed the face of America. And March is Women's History Month. So it's like I didn't take the time to learn. I was being a busy month. I didn't have the time to look at all the historical great women who contribute to our society. But it actually really bothers me when men only resort. They only describe women as being good in the kitchen.
Yeah.
That is a very toxic. That's not only toxic masculinity,
Prejudice.
but